Hello there, everyone, and welcome to GamePoints episode 348. Your weekly get together, we talk about recent gaming news. I'm as always your host, Stephen Brown, and tonight, Elden Ring's DLC gets finally announced after a year plus the game's been out. Suicide Squad looks to be just a hot mess, and we have more layoffs hitting the industry. But first, I want everyone here to know this is an audience interactive podcast, so if you're watching live here at Twitch TV/GamePoints, feel free to join the conversation. Otherwise, you can watch this later over at any myriad of video hosting platforms, be it YouTube, Rumble, BitChute, etc. Just try to keep the conversations on hand. If you're commenting on there, sometimes they can get a little off topic. First up, I already led with this right here, but let's go ahead and take a look at it. Elden Ring DLC. This is from the actual Elden Ring Twitter itself. They've only given this image and the name, Shadow of the Erdtree. What this means, who the hell knows? Gleaming from the image here itself, it looks like a woman in white, not to be confused with your maiden throughout the game, is riding Torrent, the horse that you get, and going through a field of ghostly cross-like images. Looks like to be an inverted version of the statue of Melika, I think her name is, the one with the little semicircle like that under there, riding toward a seemingly dead Erdtree, maybe a blighted one. It seems to have some goldish liquid coming off of it. I'm sure that all of your Lord Masters like Vatia Vidya are tearing through this image trying to get any bit of information they can from it. No word on a release date. I would not be surprised if this was scheduled for a holiday release, so October, November kind of time frame. I highly doubt they would have announced a DLC if it was anything less than a year out. Maybe you'll even get over the summer, but details are scant on this at the moment beyond this image. And then I guess it's also set in the lands between. So if you're thinking of going off to another universe, something like that, who knows? Because the tweet does say in the lands between. Once again, people are going to be taking an extremely granular view at every pixel of this image here to devour what they can learn from it. Because From Software, they know how to craft lore. You can argue that they can't tell a story for shit, but their worlds are very in-depth. For certain. I myself am looking forward to this. Elden Ring was one of my favorite games that came out this year, if not my favorite game that came out that year. And I recently started playing through it again, literally 2 days before this DLC was announced. So I might have to put on hold that playthrough until this comes out. My first run through Elden Ring took me about 100 hours or so. I don't know if I'm willing to go through all that again. And then again when this drops. So I might hold off that second playthrough. Who knows? Looking forward to this, though. I'm sure we will get more information soon-ish. I doubt that they would just drop this and then not follow it up with anything within the next month or two. Moving on. Okay, last week we had Sony's State of Play. They announced some smaller games. Some people thought it was a disappointment. I was kind of confused why they even bothered having one, but they more or less went over what they said they were going to. A few VR games, an independent game here and there, and Suicide Squad. All third-party stuff, mostly. I'm not going to break down what was in the entirety of the State of Play, but I want to focus on Suicide Squad. Because we finally got an extended look at the gameplay to this thing, as well as some other information. And I don't know about you, but this game looks just behind the times. I'm not saying it's ugly, it's not. But it feels 5 years out of date, which makes sense considering that the game has been delayed so many times. Of course, it would be a game from last generation because it was being developed for last generation. And I don't mean in the hardware prospects of it. I mean just in the gameplay style of things. It feels like what everyone was chasing when Anthem first came out, when Destiny 2 first dropped, etc. That live service model. And to really hammer that home, there were two images I'm sure most of you have seen going around the internet that really drive that point there. First up, this one right here of Captain Boomerang holding the nifty little gun there. Let's ignore the right hand part of that picture there. I don't care what he's holding or the cosmetics of it. Let's look at the left hand. That's right. That looks like every single, all those stats, the equipment slots, the DPS rating. It looks like every single live service game that came out 5 years ago. Anthem, Destiny, Borderlands. If you can think it, it's going to have very similar style to this. And that bothers me. I am so over the games as a service mentality. When Rocksteady announced that they were following up the Arkham games they did of Suicide Squad, I was intrigued. I was very curious to know how they were going to have a rogues gallery of minor league villains become the protagonist. I should have known this was going to be what it was. Now, a couple weeks or months ago at this point, I believe, the image of the store and everything like that came out when they had that picture where it had like store and all the different currencies on there. We knew this was coming to a degree, but when they showed the gameplay to this, I was kind of shocked about how bland it looked. It looks boring. It's you're jumping around shooting things. Okay, cool. How's that any different from any myriad of games that have come out over the past few years? There's nothing there. Top it off that people are really going through superhero fatigue right now. Now, admittedly, this is DC, but that should even be more troubling because it never reached the levels Marvel did. And Marvel's supposed to be the big boy in the room, and people are just done with that even too. So you can only imagine how tired people are of even DC. The fact that they weren't even able to get a cinematic universe off the ground despite constantly trying for it. Furthermore, when it comes to DC people in general, I am so goddamn tired of Harley Quinn. I can't even begin to express it properly. She needs to go away. I liked Harley Quinn. I liked her when she came out in the animated series back in the 90s, which she was created specifically for, by the way. And they would occasionally do stuff with her, but they keep going back to the well with her over and over and over again, and it's enough. Please, for the love of God, retire her for a little bit or do something else other than coked out manic pixie girl or something. I can't with Harley Quinn anymore. But that's all side stuff compared. Let's take a look at the game itself here. You can see the same problems with this image here. It's this idea of gear score and loot focuses for your DPS and this weird 4-player design system, but it's what I want is an Arkham spinoff. What I'm getting is a DC skin version of Borderlands or Anthems or even Marvel's Avengers. Every time I see more new information on this game, my hype for it drops that much more, which might be a good thing. That means by the time the game comes out, maybe my expectations will be set completely within check of what I'm going to get, and I won't be disappointed by it. But the more I learn about this game, the less excited I am for it. With its cosmetic-only battle pass, with its always online internet connection. I mean, this stuff is minor gripes, sure, at this point, things that we've been dealing with gaming for a while. But it felt like we were starting to move past those things, at least in some regards, which makes Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League even more dated in its ideas. Once again, when I say dated, I don't mean graphically. I mean just in its ideas that it's bringing to the table. These are all concepts we saw 5, 6, 7 years ago. Concepts that came and went, mind you. There's only a few live service games that have the staying power of Destiny. Most of the others went by. Marvel's Avengers, Anthem, Battleborn. No one really plays Borderlands anymore. Borderlands 3 kind of came and went like a hot fart. Babylon's Fall. More of these big live service games are just exploding. So when I see Rocksteady, a studio that I have great respect for with their Arkham games, give us this, I don't get it. But I don't know if I can 100% blame them either, because as I've already mentioned, this game has been delayed so many times that when they first started working on this, I'm sure it sounded revolutionary. And after a while, things like the live server elements are so baked into the cake, you can't really take them out without throwing the whole dessert away. And I wouldn't be surprised if the live service, games as a service, storefront, extra currencies nonsense was even more egregious. But then Rocksteady saw, and WB to an extent, saw the disasters that were happening with this style of game and pared them all the way down to a battle pass of cosmetic DLC. Now they also say they're going to be supporting the game well past its date with new updates and characters and quests and stuff like that. I don't care. At this point, I want a game that I can play and then be done with it. And unless this game, the only game that I've seen so far that's been doing it successfully, and we're going to talk about them a little bit more in a moment, is Destiny 2. And that's not because they do the live serve stuff any differently. It's just that is an ongoing story. It's more like an MMO, in which case every new expansion, every new season adds more on top of the story. I don't see Rocksteady doing that with Suicide Squad. What I see Rocksteady doing with Suicide Squad is saying, hey, now play through the exact same campaign again with a different character. Here's Deadshot now, or no, Deadshot's in the game already. I don't know, Captain Polka Dot, or whatever the hell the guy's name is from Suicide Squad movie. I can't think of it right now. That's what they're going to be doing. They're not really going to be adding any more value other than a new character that's going to probably play very similar to the other characters, because they have to have a similar loot loadout, meaning here's your gun, here's your melee weapon, maybe you'll get a couple of extra chest pieces, maybe one general chest piece to bump your stats up, and then, as you can see here, a shield and traversal mod. They're going to have those same 5 equipment slots regardless of what character comes out. So regardless of how they operate, they're going to still end up behaving fundamentally the same way. It's very similar to how the Hulk in Marvel's Avengers still had to have like his organs replaced because they couldn't give him armor. They couldn't give him like the Captain America like chest piece or anything like that. But they still had to have that gear store baked into that character somehow because that's how he advances. So you just got organ transplants instead. Okay. This feels like it's doomed. I'm not going to say it's not going to sell big. It is going to sell huge because it's Rocksteady, and there is, despite my rant earlier about superhero fatigue, a decent amount of anticipation for stuff. But I think that we are starting to go on the downtrend of that slope. For example, I don't think this game is going to sell nearly as many copies as it would have if it would have dropped 2 years ago. And I feel like the industry has moved on beyond this stuff, but I also am where I am saying that as Sony is simultaneously creating like 5 or 6 major live service games. I don't remember the exact number, but you're going to see whatever Sony has coming up next, and they've been quiet for a while. They can't stand to be quiet much longer. You're going to get all these new games from them with similar things added to it when it comes to live services. I fully expect Spider-Man 2 not necessarily to have this gear score setup thing, but here's the game, and here's the battle pass, and we're gonna have weekly updates, and it is cancerous to the industry, because as I have gone on this rant multiple times, if they want to charge an extra $5, someone can go without that coffee for a week. Someone can find $5 in their change of their car. What someone can't do is suddenly make a 25th hour appear in the day. And it feels like that race to the bottom that we saw the mobile phones go through. The mobile phone gaming market. And it really does feel just old at this point. It feels like this is an experiment we tried. It doesn't work 90% of the time, and everyone's chasing that 10% of the time it does work. And it's that 10% is becoming 5%, is becoming 1%. I think Sony is going to have a real rough time of things if this is the route they're going down. And yes, I know this is not a Sony game. This is multi-platform. This is designed by Rocksteady, published by WB. But my point still stands, is that all of this feels like game mechanics from half a decade ago. It's definitively last gen. And they really seem to be clinging on to it. All right. Now, speaking of games as a live service, there is one or two games I think do it very well. You have like your MMOs, World of Warcraft, Final Fantasy 14, but I don't really consider them that live service mentality. But the king of all of them, in my opinion, is Destiny 2. This here via GameSpot. The link to this and our articles we talk about, by the way, will be provided down below. Destiny 2 sets new concurrent player record on stream as Lightfall launches. As of this recording, Lightfall has launched a few hours ago, and it seems to be immensely popular amongst the Destiny 2 crowd, with them hitting more than 300,000 peak concurrent players on Steam today, which is a new all-time high for the Bungie game. According to historical data on Steam database, Destiny 2's previous concurrent player record was around 128,000 people. So Lightfall has doubled that. Important to note, this is for Steam only. This does not count on people playing on Xbox or PlayStation of any myriad of things, or I don't know, did it come out to, is it on any other kind of streaming service? I was about to say Stadia, but they went boom not too long ago. But those numbers are for Steam only, and it is more than twice its previous record high. So Lightfall seems to be doing pretty well for Bungie. Congratulations on them for a successful launch. Now, when it comes to live service stuff, I think Destiny 2 is great. They are rather consistent on releasing good chunks of content in a timely manner. Yes, I know some people burn through it very quickly, and yes, sometimes it does get delayed, but I feel like overall, when it comes to the live service model, these are the people you need to be aspiring to be, which I think proves the rule. Is Rocksteady able to do what Bungie does when it comes to supporting a live service game? I don't think so. In fact, I don't even think they're planning on doing it that long. I think what they're hoping for is to get a year worth of content of Battle Pass cosmetics, sell people all the skins, maybe 1 or 2 years then there, and then they have plans to sunset it. Even if Suicide Squad is super successful, I don't see it having that long of a shelf life amongst the live service games by its very nature. Which is why I'm tired of seeing it. That's part of it. If they actually bring something to the table, I'd be far more into it. Destiny, I feel, brings stuff to the table. And I'm really looking forward to checking out Lightfall probably next week. I don't know if I'm going to do it this week or not, but I will look into it soon. So congratulations for those at Bungie. Seems like your newest expansion is a hit. Something that wasn't a hit, however, is Forspoken, and it seems to have dire consequences for the studio that was working on it, Luminous Productions. This here is a press release from Square Enix, essentially going into detail about how Luminous Production is getting reabsorbed back into Square Enix itself. To the press release. Square Enix Holdings Limited announces that it will merge its wholly owned subsidiary Luminous Productions into its wholly owned subsidiary Square Enix, effective Monday, May 1st, 2023. The merger is part of the company's efforts to further bolster its competitive prowess of the group's development studios, a goal set forth under its cooler media, blah, 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 blah. Corporate speak. Don't need to get into it. All you need to know is that fundamentally, Luminous Productions as an independent team, despite being owned by Square Enix, it doesn't exist anymore. They are getting reorganized, brought back into the fold under the guidance of a different team. And considering that Final Fantasy 15 clearly didn't do as much as Square Enix hoped, it sold very well, but they had all these plans for DLC for Final Fantasy 15, all of which got canceled. You don't do that unless if you're not making money off of it, and it's extremely long development time. Forspoken, once again, it could not have done too well considering that they're not talking about it. Remember, one of the mantras of this show: if something does well, a company doesn't shut up about it. If it did poorly, you'll never hear from it again. It sounds like someone high up at Square Enix Holdings decided, okay, Luminous, you've had your shot. Time to bring you back in. And with reorganizations, of course, does come layoffs. I expect some people to lose their jobs over this, unfortunately. Just as you will have redundancies. You will. There's no way around it. So, Luminous Productions, sounds like your days are numbered, unfortunately. Hopefully, however, a good chunk of your team can still maintain employment and create something truly special one day. Moving on as we go through this rather quick, Joe. Paradox, both a developer and a publisher, has announced that they're going to be doing an announcement show coming up March 6th. That is next week. The main reason why I'm bringing this up is because I'm a sucker for Paradox games. If you come into the actual streaming channel here, you'll see me streaming any number of them most of the time. Hearts of Iron, Stellaris, the two big ones here. But it seems like we're going to have some stuff finally coming out from their other studios that aren't just the guys that make Stellaris and Hearts of Iron. Colossal Order is going to be teasing something. These are guys that make City Skylines. Rumor is that's going to be City Skylines 2. Really looking forward to that. However, I am getting flashbacks of the latest SimCity game that kind of came out, about a decade or so ago and was more or less responsible for Maxis going bye-bye, or at least getting severely pared down. You also have Harebrained Schemes announcing whatever the hell they're working on. I have a bit of a soft spot for Harebrained Schemes, because they make two of my favorite franchises of all time, Shadowrun and Battletech. Now, those licenses might not be owned directly by Harebrained Schemes at this point. I can't remember who exactly owns them at the moment. But that company, Harebrained Schemes, was founded by Jordan Reisman, who is the man who created both of those. So I'm kind of hoping we might get something Shadowrun, might get something Battletech. God forbid we get something with Crimson Skies. But this also could be another Necropolis or Golem Arcana. Harebrained Schemes does not always have a great track record when they try to do new things. I'm hoping they give me maybe another Shadowrun. Another Shadowrun Returns I think would be awesome. And I will always take more Battletech. But we'll see. We'll see as that goes on. Also, there's going to be a whole bunch of just Paradox news in general, dealing with Crusader Kings, Europa Universalis 4. Probably something about Victoria 3, given that game just came out. I doubt they'll announce anything about Stellaris or Hearts of Iron. Both those games seem to be strong enough to stand on their own when it comes to their own personal announcements. These seem to be smaller games, smaller studios by Paradox that kind of need to come out in a blunderbuss style release to get the attention that they deserve. Unfortunately, but that's how it is. I tend to love what this publisher produces, however, and I'm looking forward to seeing what dates we have here. Something tells me I'm going to be a little disappointed about the Harebrained Schemes game, but I'm hoping, please give me more Shadowrun. Please, please, please give me more Shadowrun. We will see. Moving on, I've got two more stories that I want to talk about before we wrap things up. This one up here from Insider Gaming. Tango Gameworks founder Shinji Mikami to leave the company. Now, this man has a immensely storied history. But I also think it shows that not only did The Evil Within and Ghostwire Tokyo not do as well as they were hoping, but even Hi-Fi Rush, which while a bit of a banger, wasn't necessarily a huge game either. So I get the distinct feeling that after a couple of big flops from Tango Gameworks, and I'm hesitant to call them flops because they're all three of those games I just mentioned are good to great, but they're not commercially successful. I think Shinji Mikami might have been a little bit pressured to step down. And this man also tends to roam as well as too. He used to be part of Capcom way back in the day. I mean, this is the guy that helped create Resident Evil 4, for God's sake. I'll be very curious to know where he ends up. Hell, he might end up back at Capcom. Capcom's going through a bit of a renaissance. What if they bring him back in to do Onimusha? Just spitballing here, but what if? What if? Anyways, to the actual article itself here from Insider Gaming. Shinji Mikami, founder and CEO of Tango Gameworks, has announced that he's leaving the studio. The announcement was made in a company-wide email from Bethesda Software Senior Vice President Todd Vaughn. He said the following. I am writing today to let you know that studio head Shinji Mikami decided to leave Tango Gameworks in the coming months. Mikami-san has been a creative leader and supporter and mentor to the developers at Tango for 12 years to his rush on the Evil Within franchise, Ghostwire Tokyo, and of course, Hi-Fi Rush. An icon in the industry, Mikami's famous creation of Resident Evil series during his time at Capcom. The Japanese developer worked on multiple games in the franchise, up to and including its reimagining with Resident Evil 4. Does this sign that he worked on the reimagining of Resident Evil 4 for Capcom? Because if he was actively working for Capcom again, I wonder if he will end up at Capcom. Interesting. Something to think about. I'll be very curious to see where he goes up. Back to the article. His horror legacy has continued when he left to form Tango Gameworks in 2010. A new studio, he directed Evil Within and acted as executive producer on Evil Within 2. The studio was acquired by Bethesda's parent company, ZeniMax, same year of its creation. Tango Gameworks' most recently release includes Ghostwire Tokyo and the surprisingly colorful release Hi-Fi Rush. Hi-Fi Rush drew particular praise of email of Von Fortune as one of the most successful launches of Bethesda and Xbox in recent years. That is saying something about Bethesda and Xbox, by the way. That Hi-Fi Rush, this is not meant to throw shade on Hi-Fi Rush, but it is a small little independent game. And the fact that they are saying it's one of the most successful releases or launches of Bethesda and Xbox in years, that says something about the state of Xbox and Bethesda more than it does say the quality about Hi-Fi Rush. Once again, to be clear, I am not bashing Hi-Fi Rush. That game is amazing. But if that is one of your most successful launches, there is something fucked at both Bethesda and Xbox, which I have been saying for a while. Moving on to the rest of the article. Confirming the email to True Achievements, Bethesda released a statement wishing Mikami well for the future, stating the company is excited by what lies ahead for the talented developers at Tango. This is not the last we have seen of Shinji Mikami, by the way. Not by a long shot. He's not retiring. Now, after reading this in full, I missed that part about how he potentially was working on Resident Evil 4 remake. I need to verify if he actually worked on the remake or not. But if true, I wouldn't be surprised if he goes back to Capcom. I would be very, very interested to see it. And I think given Capcom's second renaissance that they're going through right now, I think that that might be a good move. I think that they probably threw a lot of money at him and went, hey, come back. Let's make some more Resident Evils. Or whatever he might be wanting to do. God forbid they make Onimusha. All right. One more story before we wrap things up here via Kotaku. EA lays off 100 Apex Legends testers. Over 100 Apex Legends testers. Over 100 quality assurance testers at Electronic Arts' Baton Rouge, Louisiana office were abruptly laid off during a surprise Zoom call on Tuesday. 3 sources familiar with the meeting tell Kotaku. That would be today, by the way. They worked predominantly on Apex Legends, the publisher's hit battle royale developed by Respawn Entertainment. QA testers, who were all on contractors. Listen. I normally don't nitpick writing or grammar, but if you work at a place like Kotaku, I'd expect at least someone to be editing your work. Come on, guys. This is amateur hour shit, but what should I expect? Anyways. QA testers, who were all contractors, were invited to an unscheduled mandatory Zoom meeting at 8 a.m. CT today and encouraged to join from their personal smartphone or computer. According to 3 sources who wished to remain anonymous because they were not authorized to speak to the press, management at Baton Rouge Studio laid off the entire testing staff. The news apparently came as a shock to not only to those let go, but also full-time supervisors who were not told in advance to get them time to repair. They will be provided 60 days severance, which I believe is the minimum for a company like EA that is run out of California. I believe. I'm not positive. It's to be expected. I know that I've been saying this over and over and over again, but the layoffs are going to continue and get worse. We are just now starting to experience the beginning stages of a terrible, of a recession, dare I say depression, in a global sense. I know that it feels like the past few years they kind of fucked with COVID coming in and down and lockdowns, eliminating multiple businesses. And then for a little bit, we opened back up, things heated up real quick, and now inflation's killing all of us. And all the myriad of problems that brings along with it. These layoffs will not only continue, but they will continue throughout the year, and they will get worse. Brace, if you're in the game industry or any tech, I would say predominantly tech, get your resumes updated. Start saving money now, because the axe is going around, and it's going to hit everyone before we're done here. Please be prepared to lose your job at a moment's notice, because that is just how things are right now. it is going to get brutal, and we have not even seen the cliff yet. Condolences to all those affected by the loss of their jobs. I did read an update somewhere, which I don't have in front of me, that this actual number is now 200, but I cannot independently verify that. If you notice, by the way, I do have the Kotaku article archived. Normally, I try to go to the original link to give the source credit for it. But Kotaku being Kotaku, I will simply use an archive instead for reasons I'm sure you all know why. But they were the ones that broke the story, so I will make sure they get credit at least that way. And with that, I believe that does it for the news, which in turn does it for the show as well. This has been GamePoints episode 348, and thank you all for showing up. We do stream this live every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time right here at twitch.tv/GamePoints, so feel free to come on by and join the conversation. Can't join us live, however, we do post this up on a myriad of video hosting platforms, YouTube, Rumble, BitChute, etc. And there's, of course, a Discord you can join, link provided down there somewhere, along with all the stories that we are talking about today. Feel free to question, comment, concern down below, all that good stuff. I'm starting to lose my ability to close out the show. What can I say? It is what it is. You can follow me on Twitter at GamePointsPC or at CapitalistPig21. That's my personal one. And you can come in here at twitch.tv/GamePoints to check out whatever games I'm going to be streaming. It's Company Heroes this week. Maybe even some Phantom Brigade. That game fully came out of early access today. Looking forward to getting a hold of that as well. Until next time, however, y'all stay safe. Take care. And I'm out of here.